for the Built Ford Tough Studio, Boomer Esiason, Greg Giannotti, it's Boomer and Gio on the Fan, simulcast across the country on CBS Sports Network, and wherever you're on the free Odyssey app. Good Friday morning, a feel-good Friday indeed, the last day of February, January and February, tough months around the Northeast as we move towards spring, and more NFL news brewing, and this is a Boomstradamus. This is a what did I tell you day. The Raiders and Matthew Stafford inching closer to getting a deal done, and I don't know if the Giants are going to be able to do anything about it, as it was reported yesterday that the Raiders and Matthew Stafford had agreed on the framework of a deal, what the contract would look like. Now they got to figure out something with the Rams. If the Rams want a match, then he'll go back there to L.A. If they don't, they got to figure out a trade. And here's Joe Shane and the New York Giants going, okay, what's next? Do we trade up now to number one to assure that we get the quarterback we want? Is there someone else out there? But it seems like from yesterday, a quick change. Giants wanted Stafford. Vegas wanted him more. He wanted Vegas more. And this dream of him coming to the Giants is dead. Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
Yeah, good morning, Jay. I'm doing well. I was watching the Combine yesterday and watching a couple of the big guys running yesterday. There's nothing better than big guys running.
Big guys moving.
Right, and there are a couple of guys that are going to be in the top of this draft that showed something yesterday. I think his name was James Pierce, the edge rusher from Tennessee, was a blistering like 4.75.
Is that the guy who ran with the hood on? There was a guy who ran with a hood on and still was, it's him right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he actually had a hoodie on.
He's not big. He's tall and he's thin and he's lanky, but he was blistering yesterday. He was the fastest big guy, and you could see that, he 4.47.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. That's insane. So I would think that he's going to climb the draft board. I believe he's projected at least in the top 10 right now. But watching him and a couple of the other guys yesterday, you could see the athletes. This is why the NFL has a problem, and their problem is offensive tackles. Offensive tackles are not the athletes that these kids coming out at the edge position are. They just aren't, and it's creating it really is creating a problem in the NFL, and the NFL will have to figure something out, or offensive linemen are going to figure something out. But when you have 4.47 edge rushers like this running around the corner, it's almost impossible for 6'5", 330-pounders, even though they have great feet and they have great technique, to stop these guys, on a daily basis or a consistent basis anyway during the game. But as far as the Matthew Stafford stuff is, now, I think that both Matthew Stafford and Tom Brady have multi-million-dollar homes in Montana.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say it's one of the ski resorts out there, whether it's Big Sky, it's something like Silo Ridge.
Very, very, very nice place.
Right.
People will have houses there, properties that they go in the winter to enjoy themselves.
Right. And in the summertime, a lot of hockey players go there. Okay. I do believe that they do have houses there, and I would not be surprised if they met there. And I would not be surprised that Tom Brady has tried to talk to Matthew Stafford to come play for Pete Carroll and his buddy, who is now the GM, which was interesting because I did see Pro Football Talk interviewing both Pete Carroll and the GM for Spytek, who came from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
That's right.
And he was the guy that was kind of instrumental in getting Tom Brady there.
Yep.
So there's a lot of stuff going on. Like trying to piece all this together is unbelievable. But when you think about what Tom Brady is doing, the conflict of interest, honestly, is so obvious to everybody that he is here, the lead announcer for Fox, yet according to Spytek and according to Pete Carroll, Tom Brady is involved in decision-making, and I guess he's texting these guys a lot. And, he doesn't want to leave football. Now he has the best of both worlds. He gets to call games for teams that his team is going to be playing against, and he's also able to help his own team build. So I really wonder where this all ends and how Tom Brady is able to do both of these jobs if he's going to be this involved with the Raiders. Because let's just think for a minute. If you are the Rams, and you really do want Matthew Stafford, you're just trying to judge what you think another team is able to pay him and whether or not you're going to pay him that amount of money. Because even though the Raiders and Stafford have agreed in principle to some sort of contract, that doesn't mean the Raiders and the Rams have agreed to some sort of compensation when it comes to trading for him. So that's where we are right now. But, if Tom Brady came to me, I'd be like, I would love to go because I would think because of his presence the quarterback is always going to get the support that he needs, which I do believe undercuts the other 31 teams.
Yeah, I agree. I was shocked to hear that he was going to continue with his deal with Fox, and they made a point of saying it on a broadcast with Kevin Burkhardt. At this point, unless somebody really, really complains, like a high-level owner really, really complains to Roger Goodell and has some support there, this is going to continue. But he's more than just a little bit involved. He's not there, talking about the business aspect or hanging around Mark Davis like once every 6 months. If you go back and you watch the Pete Carroll press conference when he was hired, he mentioned Tom Brady's name about 50 times and how he wanted to be there, and he talked to Tom, and Tom did this, and Tom did that. He said his name more than Mark Davis. He said his name more than anybody.
That's exactly, by the way, just so you know, this is what the Pro Football Talk interview was like when Florio and Sims had him.
Yeah.
It was the same. It was the same thing. It was Brady this, Brady that. He loves ball. He's involved. I talked to him. I mean, and
now fast forward to this with Stafford, where he's in Montana with them recruiting him, and the next thing you know, they've got a framework of a contract. I mean, he sounds like the owner, the general manager, the coach. That's what he sounds like right now, and he's getting things done, which Tom will. But you're right, the broadcasting thing is odd. I just don't know how it continues to go on, but apparently it is. It's going to keep going.
Yeah, and I just. I don't know if other owners will start complaining or not. It all depends on how the Rams feel about this. If Brady has convinced Stafford that, look, man, you got to get out of there. You got to come to Vegas. You got to be with Coach Carroll. This is great. We got great facilities here. We're going to pay you, whatever it is, $45 million for the next 3 years. We're going to guarantee you $100 million. Whatever that number may be. Now it's up to Matthew Stafford to go back to the Rams and go, I'm out. I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
Maybe Kelly Stafford, his wife, will say the same thing. We don't want to be here, because she's been very, very critical of the Rams and some of the decisions that they've made personnel-wise, which is, to me, overstepping your bounds, which is, something that I guess in this day and age is expected. But I kind of feel like it's all going Vegas's way, and it's going to happen eventually, and it's going to happen relatively soon. Just simply because Matthew Stafford has a $4 million roster bonus due in early March.
Yeah, and the Rams did give him the opportunity to go out and explore and talk to teams. So it's not as if Tom Brady was doing this and tampering and he wasn't allowed to do it. The Rams did give permission. But now it's, what do the Giants do? It was clear that the Giants were in on Matthew Stafford. It was their number one priority. Doesn't seem like, unless this whole thing falls apart with Vegas, which I'd be surprised if it did at this point, they're going to have to go in another direction. And some of the chatter yesterday was that they're going to have to trade up to number one to ensure that they get the guy that they want.
And then there'll be a new coach next year.
Right, exactly.
I
hate to be so negative about it, but that's what it feels like is going to happen.
I feel bad for Joe Shane and Brian Daboll. I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to win. They want to win. John Mara wants to win. And they feel like they had, maybe they still do. I doubt they do. It's probably got to be very, very unlikely that it's going to happen, that they would be able to trade for Matthew Stafford at this point. I think that ship has sailed simply because of Tom Brady and his presence, and because it's indoors, it's Vegas. It's kind of got a vibe to it that I think any of these quarterbacks would love to go and play in. And he is the most sought after, and there's a reason he's the most sought after, is because he can freaking flat out play.
Yeah,
and that is something that, I would just, if I'm Matthew Stafford and Tom Brady and I are hanging out, drinking a couple glasses of wine or whatever, or eating, grilled chicken and broccoli and drinking water, whatever it is, I would think that it'd be pretty cool to think that, the GOAT wants me to come play for his team.
Yeah, and if the Giants love one of those two guys, one more than the other, and it just seems right now that Cam Ward might be selected ahead of Shedeur Sanders, then they do have to trade up with the Titans. They're going to have to do that. They love Cam Ward that much more than Shedeur Sanders.
The Browns will take him.
Well, if they trade up with the Titans, though, then they're.
I know that, but I'm just saying, like, if they don't,
yeah,
they'll. If I don't, I personally don't know what the Titans are going to do either. I mean, it's interesting. There are about 5 really unstoppable football players at the top of this draft, and neither one is the quarterback.
Yeah,
and there are some really, really top end players that would really excite me if I were a general manager. And I was thinking, like, the Titans, I think they were either 31st or 32nd in sacks last year. So that tells you, like, they need defensive linemen. They need an edge rusher.
You know
And
who their GM is, right?
Yes.
Borgonzi.
Chris Jones, baby. That's where he came from. He came from Kansas City, and he knows how important Chris Jones is. He also knows how important a quarterback is as well, because that quarterback out there just wins football games. It may not be pretty at times, but all they do is win because of him. But this is interesting for the Giants now. What do they do? And again, if Shane and Dable need to win next year, they're not winning with a rookie quarterback. Neither one of these guys, in my eyes, is Jaden Daniels. They're not C.J. Stroud. And I don't think the Giants' roster currently constructed is good enough to support the growth of a young quarterback who is not ready to play at this level yet.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting, too? So you got the 3 quarterbacks at the top of the draft. Let's just talk about them for a second and leave J.J. McCarthy and Penix and Nick's out of it. So those 3 guys we knew were going to go 1, 2, 3, sort of like we know that Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders will be the first 2 quarterbacks picked this year. So the first guy, Caleb Williams, played okay, showed talent. I think everybody still expects him to really show who he is with Ben Johnson, but his head coach gets fired. The second guy, he ends up going to the NFC Championship game. His coach is voted the number 1 coach in football by the NFLPA, and everybody loves him. But the third guy,
and by the way, it was a first-year coach,
right?
It was a first-year coach.
Well, first-year coach
Daniels.
in that place, but he coached before.
He had been the head coach before, but it was his first year with Jaden Daniels, not his third year, not his fourth year, where they're coming off of multiple losing seasons.
And then you have Drake May pick third, and then that coach got fired there too. So I mean, it's rare. The point is that it's very, very rare for a rookie quarterback to come in and do what Jaden Daniels did and then just set an organization off in the right direction. So, but they've got no choice. I mean, at this point, they've got no choice. They're going to have to go out, get a stopgap guy, draft one of these guys, and then hope at some point the rookie, if it's either Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, comes in middle of the season and looks really good, even though they're not winning, but looks really good enough so that John Mara wants to keep him. That's the only option. Because if you don't draft one of these guys, what the hell is the future?
Well, the other problem that you have is you have guys like Deontay Banks and Kayvon Thibodeau who have not panned out to be the players that they were drafted to be. And, you know, that also goes into the mix here when it comes to trying to figure out whether or not, you know, these guys should be kept here, you know, after next year. I mean, they are in a really, really tough spot. And this is one of the reasons why Matthew Stafford has been such a talking point here in New York, because everybody knows that they need that. If they want to compete in their division right now, they have the worst quarterback right now as we sit here. They have the worst quarterback situation, I believe, in the NFL.
Browns.
Yeah, I guess you could say the Browns. Yeah, I guess the Browns.
And they're both rock bottom.
Browns and the Giants are 31, 32, depending on what you think of Tommy DeVito.
Yeah.
Because Tommy DeVito is the only guy on the roster.
Yep.
So there's going to be a new guy back
Is
there.
Drew Lock just a one-year deal?
Yeah. There's going to be one guy. Maybe Tommy stays here. I hope for him and his family he does. But to be realistic, there's going to be 2 new guys, maybe 3 new guys that are brought in. One is going to be a stopgap. One is probably going to be a draft pick, and another one may be a college free agent somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, and they ended up doing it with Kurt Warner and Eli Manning, and the Giants would love for that to work out just like that again. So that's what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to find an older veteran somewhere to come in, play, keep them in games, not be an embarrassment like they were last year. And then when they feel like that guy is ready, they're going to have to get him into some games at some point. They're going to, because the pressure is going to be.
Eventually they will be. Eventually they will, because whoever the stopgap guy is not going to go 7-0.
No way.
I mean, the stopgap guy might go 1-5, and then it's going to be like, oh, you got to play the guy. Then we all know what's going to happen.
Of course,
it's like we could see it before our eyes.
Yeah.
If they do not get one of these legitimate stopgap quarterbacks, whether it be a Russell Wilson or a Kirk Cousins, if Atlanta decides to move on from Kirk, I don't know. I mean, but there are a handful of those types of guys out there.
Yeah, I mean, and that's really the only option that they have now, and they got to hope whoever that is, if it's Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, comes in and shows real promise. Because if he doesn't, and he has a bad year and looks overwhelmed, whoever that is, then those guys are gone. And then you've got a detriment to the young quarterback, is going to have to learn a new offense the next year and all these things we talk about that really sets a guy back. And John Mara, he talked about screwing up Daniel Jones and changing the offensive coordinators and the head coach and all that stuff. He could do it again.
There
could happen again.
And I've said this during the season, and I'll say it again. Pat Shurmur's the guy. Pat Shurmur really knows whether or not Shedeur Sanders can play. He knows. He's been there with him a couple years. They've been running a pro-style offense. I don't know what his relationship with the Giants truly is, but, if you're Joe Shane and you're Brian Daboll, you got to sit down with Pat Shurmur, and you got to ask him all the questions, and maybe they have already, I don't know, about Shedeur Sanders and whether or not you think he could handle coming here to New York. I mean, Pat Shurmur was here for a couple years. He got what I think is the best out of Daniel Jones. And I would think that he would be a real good pipeline for Brian Daboll to call up and just talk to him and say, you think this guy can handle it? There's a lot that goes into this. And that's why these interviews are important. It's important to see them run, and it's important to see them throw, and they'll have pro days. But you really got to get to know the young man to see whether or not he is truly dedicated to becoming great. And that goes for Cam Ward, too, by the way.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that part of Shedeur. What I'm worried about is the talent level. I mean, I know he's going to work hard. I know he understands it. He's been around it. All those things I'm not concerned about with him. I think he's going to be mature enough and dedicated enough to be a great player. Like I said, I haven't heard a single person, whether it's you, whether it's Phil, whether it's any number of draft experts, that have said that he can come in and be a great quarterback. And I keep bringing this up. The two comps that I heard with Shedeur Sanders were Teddy Bridgewater and Chad Pennington. He may end up being better than those guys and winning Super Bowls. That doesn't mean that he's going to be someone.
When you think about those guys, you don't think about dual threat quarterbacks. You think about more pocket passers, good, solid, leaders of their teams, very likable players,
but not a first, second, or third overall draft pick.
Well, right, exactly. Maybe middle first round. But again, it's all going to come down to, does somebody really need a quarterback? And there are 5 or 6 teams that fall into that category, the Giants being one of them, the Jets being another.
Yep, that's right. It's Boomer and Gio on the Fan and CBS Sports Network.